we are back with some more gaming sessions this week. There's a lot to talk about, a lot of games are coming out, but I want to focus on one thing that I've been playing for the past week, and I'm pretty sure you guys know what I'm talking about, and that is the biggest hit right now, other than Helldivers, I think, is Last Epoch. And if you don't know what Last Epoch is, it's an action RPG similar to Diablo and Path of Exile, Torchlight, Titan Quest. They're all those genres that we've seen in the past, and honestly, in recent years, we've been seeing a lot more. It's all about making your build, going through these gigantic mobs of enemies, doing bosses, and the main draw of it is the loop of the gameplay, getting all the equipment you need, making sure you have the right stats for each equipment so it can synergize well with whatever build you're going with. So there's a lot to think about when you're playing an action RPG. Some are more complicated than others. PoE is one of the most complicated games I've ever played in my life. And I feel like the reason for that is because of the longevity of the game. It's been out for almost 10 years, or 10 years exact. But if you look at something like Diablo 3 and Diablo 4, those are a lot more casual, beginner friendly. You could jump right in and you can do most of the content. And Last Epoch is one of those new games that really filled that mold. I feel like in recent years we've been seeing a lot more ARPGs come to life. We got Wolcen at the beginning of 2020 or 2019, I forgot where it was. We got Torchlight Infinite. We have PoE, which is still going strong, and a sequel to that, which is coming pretty soon. Got Last Epoch and Diablo 4. So there's a lot more ARPGs to go around nowadays, but I feel like around 2010s and that decade between 2010 and 2020, that was a really dry point of the genre. But today, with so many RPGs though, I feel like Last Epoch really stands on its own. So let's get into it. Let's talk about all the Last Epoch launch stuff, 1.0 woes, 1.0 magic that I experienced throughout the game. It's not going to be too much of a impressions video, so you can talk about all the stuff that I liked, stuff that I feel like the community is really engaged in with, and just how much fun I'm having with the game. First off, let's talk about the server issues and login issues. Online games are very hard to gauge, especially when they have like so many eyes on it. The servers can be really bottled down with so many people logging in at the same time, and that really hurts the servers and all the people around that are trying to play, especially the devs that are trying to work around everything and fixing it. From listening to and hearing from pre 1.0 interviews, the dev teams were very optimistic about the server troubles they might have, or any things that they can fix when having those kind of troubles. And through all the communications they've had through interviews, through the Discord, they felt very optimistic about how it was going to go for them. But they are still a pretty small team, and a lot of them are working on their first game, so there will be some growing pains for sure. And like honestly, like anyone else predict, the servers were kind of on fire for at least 4 days, and that really drove consumers crazy and just review bombing the game. One of the reasons I don't understand that is because you can play the game already. You play the game offline mode. That's a feature they added a long time ago, even before they had like these crazy server issues. If you're gonna review a Steam game like that, even if it's just somewhat of a small opinion, you could still play the game and not pretend like you couldn't play the game because of the servers didn't let you in. There are a lot of ways they worked around with the offline and online mode. Obviously, you can't bring your offline mode to online and vice versa. So that was kind of a bummer. Throughout the whole server, 5-day server issues, you could have just been playing the game. They even released a midweek update for what they were planning to do with the servers, updating, patching it, fixing it, and all the stuff that we're having trouble communicating with the community. They even mentioned that they took a huge hit because of all the massive negative reviews that they've been getting in the past few days. And for that, the only thing I really have to say is these developers are human. They stress out. It's kind of insane how many times we've seen a 1.0 launch for a huge online game not work properly on the first couple of days. And it's not because of the game is bad or the game is like fundamentally broken. It's the servers are just bottlenecked with so many people logging in at the same time. Throwing money at just servers, that's not how things work, especially when it comes with technology. If you just throw money at stuff and expect things to work exactly as you planned it when there's so many intricate parts, it's not something I feel like everyone should just speak out when they think they could fix something with, yeah, just throw money at new servers and they'll fix the job. That's not how online infrastructure works. Now that I have all that out of the way, let's get into all the fun and gameplay stuff. So for 1.0, I decided to start one of the new classes or masteries, as they call it in Last Epoch, the Warlock. If you don't know what the Warlock does, it's a mastery class that really focuses on dots and putting curses on the enemy. And even though I had a pretty good build planned out, I still had to pivot a lot. It was my first time making a build even in Last Epoch, but now that I'm at the end game, I'm level 95 now, I'm feeling like I'm getting my build together. So like I said, the build really focuses on dot damage and curses, which is what I've been using. And the main curse I'm using is Damned or Torment, as they call it. And these torments are like ghosts that comes throughout the ground of the ability you use, called Cathodic Fissure. And these spirits goes into the bodies of enemies and they do a massive amounts of curse damage. And then if you spec in the right way, that's curse damage will spread and that will give you a bigger area to do damage in. Now to start, it was all about getting enough armor, getting enough health, and kind of scaling the curses so I could do enough damage to bigger mobs like bosses. So that was the goal. One of the main damage dealers of the build was passive that allows you to curse yourself, that deals a lot more damage to the enemy. Plus that passive also gives you more health on top of that. And as I got into the end game, it kind of changed almost completely, as I am really focused on gaining ward, which is like an outer shield. Really focused on getting mana regen, which I can spam my abilities more often and do more damage. Which is to say that the respecing in this game is so good, it makes me really think about what I want to build and not just stick with the certain build I have. In PoE, you really have to stick to what you want and really focus on it, because if you're spreading out your abilities too wide, you're not gonna do too much, especially when it comes to the higher end content. In Last Epoch, the difficulty and the content is more forgiving, but the building aspect is still there. The theory crafting, all the synergizing with uniques, their passives, and all that. That's still in the game, and it really has to be in an action RPG. That respec allows me to just think about more and adjust to what I want when I'm playing these kind of games. Usually I feel out the build I want, switch out an ability if it doesn't feel great or it doesn't synergize well with any of my other abilities. So that's the one thing that I really love about Last Epoch and the leveling experience throughout the campaign and the early levels of the end game. The one thing I really want to talk about, and it's not nothing new per se, it's new for me because I've been playing for only a month, but the crafting is very fun. It's simple, it's really rewarding, but there's a risk to it, obviously, and that really kind of gets my heart beating and flowing. Part of the reason I like the genre is because of the gear progression. It's one of the reasons I love MMOs, is finding the gear you want. You can farm for the gear. It doesn't have to be the best thing in the game, but if it's the best thing for your build, then that's a great upgrade. And that loop of getting better gear and better gear every time and just upgrading you guys so to a point where you're just invincible, that's the reason I really come to the games. Part of it is building, part of it is figuring out what works with what, and the crafting system is another extension of that. The ruin system, where when you're scattering and removing certain affixes from the gear, that can be very exciting. Again, that's a risk reward thing. It doesn't feel too monumental where if you lose a stat on a helmet or something and it's something you really need, it's not really that monumental. Like you're not gonna cry over it. You might be a little like sad or disappointed, but you're not gonna drop the game and not play it ever again. There's a lot of ways to get the same gear, the same loot, the same affixes, so just keep playing it and you'll get it again. But that's part of why I like it so much, is though the risk reward factor is there, the risk doesn't feel too big that you would quit the game. And another system that involves the crafting is how to make like legendary items, which are extra stats that you add on to unique items. And each of these uniques will have a tag on it, which is LP, that stands for legendary potential. And depending on the number of legendary potentials you can get, you can add certain stats to a helmet to your unique helmet. So that can really make powerful unique items, even ones that really don't make sense for your build or something that is bad for just overall gameplay. That could really change how you think of that unique. And not only that, it's tied to a dungeon. So the only way you can upgrade a LP unique item is to go through the Temporal Sanctum. And this is a dungeon. I talked about this in my other videos. This is something I didn't dabble too much in when I first made the video a couple weeks ago. But now that I've played a bunch, I went through tier 3. Yeah, tier 3. And it's pretty simple. I like the mechanics of switching timelines and bringing you to one timeline to another timeline. And they make good use of that mechanic when it comes to the boss. But the randomness of crafting and the risk reward of it is what brings me back to keep crafting the game. And then get into the new and juicy things, the factions. Well, mostly just a Circle of Fortune, because that's the only faction I went with. So in 1.0 they added a faction system where you can join as the Circle of Fortune, which is a modifier for loot, I guess. Like you get a lot more loot depending on what quests you choose or prophecies. And the other side of the faction is the Merchants Guild, which is the trade system in Last Epoch. For me, I chose the Circle of Fortune. That was catered to more to my gameplay style. I don't want to spend time talking to someone to get a certain gear that I need, but that kind of stops me from playing the game and figuring out certain builds. And Circle of Fortune really emphasizes on playing yourself and getting your own gear. So upon joining the Circle of Fortune, you will go to an observatory, and through these telescopes you'll find prophecies, and these prophecies will give you a certain loot. So you can get a headpiece, an exalted shield, a rare wand, or a unique relic, whatever it is. And within the telescopes you can really force the loot and the core mechanics that you're gonna engage with. So if you want to only do monoliths, you can block out the arenas and the map stuff and the dungeons. On top of that, you could also add a higher percentage chance of a certain item you want, or a rarity. So in one case, you might have a better chance of finding a exalted helmet in a dungeon, or a better chance to get affix shards in a monolith. So there's a lot of ways to target farm gears that you want, and that really focuses on gameplay and doing as much content in the game as you can. And you can stack each prophecies. So let's say each prophecies will give you a dungeon to complete, and those are the same dungeons. So you can stack each of those items for that's one content to do, and you get all those rewards. So that really seemed enjoyable to me, to just see all that loot on the ground. It just seems so much enjoyable. But I understand some people like trading a lot more. I just feel like if the only thing you're trading is gold, it doesn't really make sense to trade. In PoE, it's a lot more than just one currency. You're trading a bunch of currencies that allows you to upgrade your gear in some insanely powerful ways. But Last Epoch, you don't really have that currency to trade with. And another thing I noticed when it came to Circle of Fortune, the passives just from getting to a higher rank are just as powerful and important as the prophecies you're accepting. For a rank 7, I think a tier 7 will double its effect. So tier 7 affixes are the highest tier you can get when it comes to a stat. So getting that double chance is just incredibly strong already. And there's another rank where you get double rewards for the monolith you completed, or the echo that you completed. So that's very, very powerful, especially when you want like XP books. The books are doubled, so you get 6 of them, and that really gets your XP and level up very, very fast. And the last thing that I'm going to talk about here, and it's a new feature also, which came alongside with Circle of Fortune and the Merchants Guild, is the resonance system. Resonance are a drop that drop randomly when you're playing with a friend. And from my initial thoughts, I thought it was going to be a very common drop that you can trade like a lot of items with the people you're playing with. So resonance are kind of like shards in the game. It's a random drop that goes into your material bag when you into your material bag. The resonance allows you to trade certain items like rares, exalted, uniques to the other people in your group. It will be tagged to that certain person, so you can't just trade it with anyone. It has to be within that group you played with. There will be a name with the person on the resonance, so you know that's the only person you can trade with. And they have 2 rarities of it. They have gold resonance and silver. But the gold resonance is the most common one, and then there's the the other resonance, which is the rarer one, and you can trade legendary gear. But the resonance are freaking rare, like really, really rare. I did not think that they would restrict like player-to-player trading this strictly. Now, I could be wrong. I haven't tried trading like directly when we're right next to each other, when we're playing with each other and next to each other. That's not something I tested, but I do know the resonance is there for groups that play separately. Most of the time they play together, but sometimes their times won't align and they play separately, right? And that's where the resonance come in, where you can trade if you find something that you aren't particularly happy with, but it might be something great for your group. So that's where the resonance come in. But they drop so rarely, I don't even think it's even worth to just play with your friends to expect that. Like, again, I could be wrong that you could just trade at the moment you're playing with each other. Me and my buddy, we play for about 4 or 5 hours, and throughout that time we only got 3 resonance drops, the golden ones, throughout both of us. Not just me, not just him, both of us. It's good to have, like, we can trade with each other now, and that's a very good feature to have, but just the frequency of the drop rate is not what I expected and not something I feel like we would use a lot. But who knows, I'm not even using it as much as I need to, really. I still have the 2. I feel like they need to fix the drop rate in some ways, so it feels more fulfilling when you're playing with friends. But yeah, the faction and the resonance system, it's a very cool idea that really hits what it's there for, but they really do need some updates and fixes along the way. Either some quality of life changes for some of the Circle of Fortune stuff, or just a high drop rate on the resonance. Maybe it gives them give people something extra to do well in the group, like more XP or something like that. I don't know. That's just my 2 cents when it comes to resonance and group play. And that's gonna be it for gaming sessions this week. Thanks for joining me. I hope you guys liked my Last Epoch kind of sessions there. I'm really enjoying when I played of it. I know they're working on the next cycle right now, but I think this is a game that I'll come back to very, very frequently. Thanks for watching, and if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up, sub if you haven't already, and if you want to watch me live, you can catch me on this channel. You can catch me on Twitch also, and any updates on any of the streams or videos that I'm gonna update, that will be on Twitter. So I'll see you guys next week on gaming sessions. Peace.